I want to bring in NBC News national security and global affairs reporter Dan DeLuce. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez is in Tel Aviv for us. Also with us, former Deputy National Security Advisor and MSNBC political contributor Ben Rhodes. It's good to have all of you here. Raf, what more do we know about these latest blasts in Lebanon?
Chris, for a second day in a row, we are seeing explosions tearing through Lebanon. These are blasts isolated not just to Beirut, the capital city, but we are seeing it in the south near the border with Israel. We're seeing it in the east in the Bekaa Valley in a Hezbollah stronghold. Yesterday, it was pagers that were exploding in the hands, in the pockets, on the belts of Hezbollah members. According to Lebanese state media, today, it is walkie-talkies that are blowing up. So this appears to be a second phase of what two U.S. officials tell NBC News was a vast, covert Israeli operation yesterday, targeting Hezbollah members and targeting also its communication networks. Now, as you said, at this point, state media in Lebanon is saying 9 people were killed today. That's on top of the 12 people killed yesterday. At least 300 people injured today, on top of the 2,700 who were injured yesterday. So this is a vast public health crisis for Lebanon. It is a deep, deep security crisis for Hezbollah, which has found that its archenemy Israel has penetrated its absolute most sensitive communications. But it is clear that there are at least some civilians who have been caught up in this attack. At least 2 children were killed in these pager blasts that we saw yesterday. And Chris, while the New York Times is reporting that Israeli agents at some point smuggled small amounts of explosive into each of these individual devices, what remains unclear is exactly at what point in this shadowy, confusing supply chain the Israelis were able to do that. Most of those beepers that blew up yesterday bear the logo of Apollo Gold. That is a Taiwanese company. But overnight, that company saying they didn't actually make the models that were used in Lebanon. Those were produced by a company in Hungary, which paid a license fee to use that logo. We called that company earlier today. We reached a woman who identified herself as the CEO. She sounded very shaken to find herself at the center of an international news story. And she was saying her company doesn't actually make the pagers. They are just an intermediary. So it is unclear exactly how the Israelis got into these devices. And that is one of the many, many questions outstanding right now. Chris?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Dan. At what point in the supply chain did they get explosives into these devices? Were they the supply chain? That's just the beginning of all those questions. What are we hearing from the U.S., Dan?
The U.S., Chris, feels a little powerless at this point. This was a surprise. This is not something the Biden administration wanted to see. They're desperately trying to diffuse tensions, trying to secure a ceasefire, trying to secure a deal that will get those hostages released and somehow avoid what everyone's fearing here is a full-blown regional all-out war or direct conflict between Iran and Israel. And as Ralph was saying, this is a humiliating setback for Hezbollah. This is a total collapse of their security. And I think there's also another audience here for Israel, and that is their own domestic population. I think the October 7th attack by Hamas last year was its own shock to their system. They have great confidence in their intelligence and their military, and that was a huge failure that attack happened and took them so by surprise. So now you've seen a series of covert operations, incredible, extraordinary assassinations of Hezbollah leaders, the leader of Hamas in Tehran assassinated, and now this. This is Iran's very important militia here. That they see this as the bulwark of their defense. Their communications network completely penetrated. I think for the White House, they're desperately trying, again, to appeal to all parties to exercise restraint. But it doesn't really look like Israel has been listening to that message.
Dan DeLuce, thank you for that. Ben, it's good to see you. Look, you've been involved in high-level conversations around situations that are extraordinarily sensitive, probably more times than you can count during the Obama administration. So take us behind the curtain to the extent that you can. What are likely the kinds of conversations President Biden is having right now with his national security team, and what are the key U.S. interests?
Well, the U.S. interests have been trying to avoid a kind of full-blown escalatory regional war, right? Because, number one, that puts at risk what has been months of U.S. mediation to try to get a ceasefire deal, try to get the hostages released, and an end to the war in Gaza. But also, if the whole region sets on fire, then U.S. service members who are in places like Syria and Iraq are at risk. U.S. diplomatic facilities in places like Iraq are at risk. Global energy prices could spike if we see the conflict spreading, as we've already seen in the Red Sea or the Straits of Hormuz. So the U.S. interest has been de-escalation. As recently as a few days ago, Chris, the U.S. was sending diplomats to Israel to try to urge de-escalation in Lebanon, right? So at a political level, what's clear is that the Israeli government is ignoring those messages and has decided that it's going to try to deal these kinds of blows to Hezbollah. Then I think at the security level, the U.S. is probably just trying to understand what's going on. How far is this going? Is this, importantly, Chris, is this a precursor to a broader Israeli military operation in Lebanon? In other words, is this just the Israelis taking some shots at a bunch of Hezbollah guys through their pagers, through their walkie-talkies? Or is this Israel trying to break those communications network, rattle Hezbollah, isolate them from one another so that they can then launch a kind of military operation into Lebanon because they want to kind of move their population that's been displaced by Hezbollah rockets in northern Israel back? So I think right now, Chris, in the Situation Room, they're just trying to understand what's going on, because it's pretty clear that Israel did not give any kind of advance notice of this operation to the United States.
And obviously, this is not the first time that Israel has ignored the entreaties of the Biden administration. But let me ask you about what's going on in Cairo right now. That is where Secretary Blinken is, and he went there specifically to have conversations about the possibility of finally reaching a ceasefire agreement. We just heard from Kamala Harris yesterday when she was in front of NABJ, reiterating her position. There has to be a deal on Gaza that ends the fighting, that frees the hostages. What does all this mean for that goal?
I just think it makes it much, much more difficult. Essentially, all of these things are ultimately connected. And I think rightly, the Biden administration understands that the only pathway to truly de-escalate the tensions in the region is a ceasefire deal in Gaza. Hezbollah had been firing these rockets into Israel since October 7th. They see themselves as kind of part of this conflict that Israel's in with Hamas. So as long as the war is going on in Gaza, it's going to be very difficult to de-escalate the situation in places like Lebanon. I think the challenge here is the more you militarize the conflict, the more unlikely it is that, Hamas and the Israeli government will kind of make the types of decisions necessary to get to a ceasefire. We've seen in the past the U.S. getting very close to a ceasefire, even coming out and saying that they expect there to be a ceasefire. And then at the last moment, either Prime Minister Netanyahu or Hamas, insist on conditions that kind of scuttle the deal. When there's this degree of regional tension, I just think it's that much more difficult to achieve a ceasefire. At a certain point, the question is going to be, is this the best way forward to kind of continue this kind of constant negotiation while the Israeli government and Hamas and everybody else seems to be running a different play?
So let's talk about how this got done, this level of sophistication, Ben, because Hezbollah actually stopped using smartphones because they were worried about them being infiltrated. They switched to pagers. Yesterday, they blow up. So now that a lot of what they were using were walkie-talkies, what is the level of coordination and sophistication it takes to pull off something like this 2 days in a row?
Well, yeah, there are a couple of things that jump out to me, Chris. I mean, first of all, there's an incredible level of sophistication because, number one, they clearly got into the supply chain, right? So clearly there was something inserted into these devices. It wasn't just like a remote control switch where they hacked into them. They physically were able to manipulate these devices and know where they were going to go, right? So they had to have sufficiently penetrated not just the supply chain of where they're buying pagers and walkie-talkies, but they had to penetrate their communications network. They needed to have people on the ground who knew how these things were going to be distributed. We know that Israel's penetrated Hezbollah before. They're able to identify the locations of Hezbollah officials. They've disrupted weapons shipments. So it's not a surprise that they are kind of inside of some of Hezbollah's operations. But this is another level of sophistication. The other thing that jumps out to me, Chris, though, is that, oftentimes if you have the ability to penetrate somebody's communications network, you would use it to listen to those communications. And so it's a big decision to say, hey, instead of trying to kind of use this capacity to understand what they're doing and understand their intentions and understand how the network is operating, we are going to kind of blow our own operation, literally, because we want to send this message and achieve this military aim of setting back Hezbollah tactically and really trying to kind of rattle them internally. And so it's that decision to kind of weaponize this capability that is most interesting. And I think there's been divisions inside of the Israeli government about how aggressive to be in terms of going into Lebanon. Clearly, Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided to kind of push the envelope there and go on offense militarily against Hezbollah. Where that all leads is the big question. How does Hezbollah respond? What further operations does Israel have in mind? It does suggest that we're going to be living with escalation risk and a degree of conflict in this part of the world for longer than I think certainly the Biden administration will want.